Good Wednesday morning. Today is a great text. Today and tomorrow is a great text. That St. Paul goes into Athens. Okay, this is Acts of the Apostles. Okay, you got to know that Athens was the center of learning and culture in the world, hands down. Okay, if you want to understand, I'll show you something. If you want to understand European culture, you have to. It's three-pronged. Okay, and this is the first step of the third prong. First prong to understand it is the Athenian mind, science. Athens was the center of philosophy in the world. This is the home of Plato and Aristotle, Neoplatonism, etc. You cannot understand Western culture and Western civilization without understanding its roots in the philosophical mind. They invented science. The Athenians broke loose from religion as a source of wisdom and sought now, it goes back 500 BC, but boy, it culminates under Plato in the 4th century, Plato and Aristotle. And then later, at the time of St. Paul, the Neoplatonists. You cannot understand it. The genius of the Greek mind. All right? The Greek mind, the Mediterranean mind, the Greek Mediterranean mind gave the world science, the scientific mind. But you also have to understand what's going on here. Rome, the rule of law. Without the Roman Empire uniting the whole world, Paul can't preach. He can't make his moves. Neither can St. Peter. It's the Roman structure of law that allows him and protects him. See? Right. That's how how it all happens, you see. And then finally, Christianity. This is the beginning of it. With Paul, he's the apostle to the Gentiles, preaching to the Athenians. And it doesn't say he has to be immediately successful. You would think he would be. He's talking to the smartest people in the world. These are the Greek mind. In Athens, the very center of culture, art, and mind, philosophy. Okay? All righty? And he goes and he's gonna debate with them. And he doesn't do bad. They're listening. These guys are smart. See? Even though he's appealing to their religion, okay? You got to know they're philosophers. In their heart of soul, they're philosophers. And hence, they're thinking it through, okay? In what terms? In terms not just of their religious beliefs, but in terms of their philosophical underpinnings. And Paul's reaching for that. So Paul stood up in the Areopagus and said, "You Athenians, I see that in every respect, you're very religious." They were and they weren't. They were and they weren't. Okay? Okay? For as I walked around looking carefully at your shrines, I even discovered an altar inscribed to an unknown God. You were covering your tails, just in case we missed. Eh? What therefore you unknowingly worship, I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and all that is in it, the Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in sanctuaries made by human hands, nor is he served by human hands because he needs anything. Most importantly, author of reality. The Greeks were thinkers of what constitutes the laws of reality itself, the logic of reality itself. Rather, it is he who gives everyone life and breath and everything. He made from one the whole human race to dwell on the entire surface of the earth, and he fixed the ordered seasons and boundaries of their regions so that people might seek God and perhaps grope for him and find him, though indeed he is not far from for any one of us. Now here he quotes the Neoplatonists. This is not the gospel. This is Neoplatonism. See? All right, this is what he says. For in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your poets have said. See? Now we're into poets, those are philosophers, especially Neoplatonists. Okay? For we too are his offspring. Since therefore we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that divinity is like an image fashioned from gold, silver, stone, art, imagination. God has overlooked the times of ignorance, but now he demands that all people everywhere repent, because he has established a day on which he will judge the world with justice through a man he has appointed, and he has provided confirmation for all by raising them from the dead. That was the deadly line. The resurrection is a deadly line to the Athenians. You got to know Platonic thought for that reason. When they heard that about the resurrection of the dead, some began to scoff. But others said, we should like to hear you on this another time. That's the first rendition of Don't Call Us, but We'll Call You. Neat, isn't it? And so Paul left them. But some did join him and became believers. Among them was Dionysius, a member of the court of Areopagus. And, look again, it's women. A woman named Damaris, and others with them. He left Athens and went to Corinth. Corinth was a sea town, just a quintessential opposite of Athens. Though it had great learning in it, it was a rough and tough town. I think of the docks in New York. I mean, I used to go hang around there when I was stationed in New York 50 years ago, 55 years ago. Talk about tough, but still beautifully. Those were tough guys. The guys that worked on the shore, worked on the ships. Yeah, longshoremen. That would be Corinth. Tough town. See, Paul fails in Athens, actually, because he preached the resurrection. For the Platonists, the soul and body relationship was what what Plato called the befouled mixture. They sought the freedom of the mind from the body, from the emotions, and hence to say that the body was going to rise is to be a resurrection of confusion. See, that's what they thought. What are you kidding me? Who the hell wants the body? See, they wanted the freedom of the soul. You have to read Plato, especially his early writings. When Socrates is about to get executed, he's not crying. What does he say? Now my soul will be free. I get to think the thoughts. I get to argue. I get to argue with the great poets. See? Without that befouled mixture of emotion, you see? Christianity is an incarnational religion. Platonic thought was, in a sense, anti-incarnational. It sought the soul, the centrality of the soul. Unfortunately, in some ways, that creates it is a dualism. And when the church finally did approach in the 3rd century, really appropriated Platonism, Neoplatonism, Greek philosophy, became the great handmaiden of theology. There's always that lingering soul and body issue, the salvation of the soul. That's Greek. It's the salvation of the person. That's Christian, Judeo-Christian, and that means the body. So we focus not on the afterlife as the soul free of the body, but the resurrection of the dead. Easter. The key is Easter. You see, it's very important to keep that in mind. It's a profound mystery. But it isn't the soul, as it were, separated from the body as such. See, that's the Greek idea, and that's where St. Paul runs afoul. He tried to out-Athenian the Athenians, and he couldn't, you see. It's a great lesson, though. I love the fact that he engaged it, because the church has engaged the intellectual world from day one. Sometimes he runs against the wall. She bangs her head against the wall. That's okay. That's okay. Eventually, Greek philosophy became the handmaiden of theology. You cannot understand a Christian theology apart from its marriage, its synthesis of Greek thought and Palestinian or Judaic thought. All right? Revelation and reason and revelation. Can't. How do you understand Thomas Aquinas without understanding Aristotle? Are you kidding me? When they rediscovered Aristotle's writings around the 11th century, it was a revolution. The medieval period exploded in genius. It wasn't just Aquinas and his mentor Albert the Great, but also the Franciscan tradition, Bonaventure. Holy moly, a time of consummate religious genius. Why? They were reading the Greeks as well as the gospel. But not at the time of St. Paul. He put his foot in his mouth. That's neat. So he said, okay, he moves on to Corinth, and he gets sick on the road, which really makes it interesting, because he gets sick going to Corinth. He's down his luck. He's so worn out. He's so pooped out. He gets to Corinth, and he says, he doesn't try to outsmart anybody. He just preaches Jesus crucified, died, and risen. He converts the city. He's recognized the truth of the gospel is not an argument, it's a person, it's the resurrected Christ. And Paul's witnesses, he witnessed to his own fallibility, his own weakness, and in so doing that, he filled up those things, wanting in the suffering of Christ. He converts the Corinthians. It's not philosophy, it's religion.